Most men don't realize they're wasting their life until one quiet moment when they no longer recognize the man in the mirror. Not because he's broken, but because he's scattered, always busy, always available, yet never fully present. And over time, the fire he once had, it dims, slowly, quietly, without warning. There was a time when you moved with intention, when your energy was sharp. Your standards were non-negotiable. You knew exactly what mattered. But then, life got loud. The world rushed in with its demands. Notifications became your morning ritual. Obligations stacked like bricks on your back. And somewhere along the way, you started trading clarity for chaos, purpose for performance, fulfillment for fatigue. You told yourself it was just a phase, that you'd recalibrate eventually. You kept saying, "Next week," but that week kept disappearing, and so did your fire. And by the time you realized how much time you'd lost, it wasn't just minutes. It was versions of you that never got the chance to exist. So, no, this video isn't about grind harder or do more. It's about coming back to what already belongs to you, your time, your direction, your self-respect. Not to impress anyone, but to stop bleeding for a world that never learned to value your depth, because the man you promised yourself you'd become, he's not buried in burnout. He's waiting in your focus. And if any of this hits home, don't scroll past. Stick around. Watch this through. Not for me, but for the man you'll be 5 years from now, who'll thank you for not ignoring this moment. The cost of not focusing. You don't lose your life all at once. You lose it in pieces. A minute here, replying to a message you didn't want. An hour there, scrolling through people you don't know. Comparing yourself to lives that aren't real. You say yes to something you didn't believe in. You agree to meet someone who drains your spirit. And before you know it, your calendar's full, your soul is empty. Most men think wasting time means sitting idle. But the truth is darker. Wasting time often looks productive. It looks like helping everyone but yourself. Like staying busy with tasks that keep you distracted from the one thing that actually matters, your purpose. It's not the loud chaos that breaks you. It's the quiet, constant drip of misplaced attention. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you're gambling with a currency you'll never earn back. And here's the catch. Time doesn't wait for your realization. It doesn't pause until you get clear. As Seneca wrote, people are frugal in guarding their property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful. You'd never let a stranger walk into your house and take your possessions. But how often do you let people walk into your day and rob your focus? You don't feel the theft immediately. That's what makes it so dangerous. The cost is hidden. You start to feel restless, anxious, unfulfilled. You blame your job, your relationship, your lack of motivation. But what you're really feeling is the weight of a life lived off course. A man with no focus is a man slowly disappearing from his own story. He's there, but not present. Alive, but not awake. He's reacting instead of building, surviving instead of leading. And maybe you tell yourself it's fine, that you're just helping others, staying busy, doing what's needed. But let me ask you this, how much of your life is actually yours, not scheduled by someone else, not shaped by someone else's expectations, but truly yours, your thoughts, your time, your rhythm? For too many men, the answer is uncomfortable. We've become excellent at being available to the world, and terrible at being available to ourselves. There comes a moment, a moment, where your body feels the fatigue your mind has ignored, where your heart whispers a truth your calendar refuses to hear, that you've been everywhere for everyone, except home within yourself. That moment isn't failure. It's the start of awakening, because only when you see how much it's costing you to stay scattered, do you begin to reclaim your power. Focus is not a luxury. It's not something you do when things settle down. Focus is the front line of self-respect. It's how you guard your mission. It's how you make sure the man in the mirror doesn't disappear behind the noise of everything you said yes to but never truly wanted. And in a world where everyone wants your attention, your focus becomes your most sacred rebellion. You can't get those hours back, but you can stop the bleeding. Right now, today, not with a massive overhaul, but with a simple decision to stop giving the world your best, while giving yourself the leftovers. Time is finite, attention is sacred, and you, my friend, are far too powerful to be living like you don't matter. This isn't about guilt, it's about clarity. Because the cost of not focusing is not just lost hours, it's a lost self. And that is too high a price to pay. Why distraction is the silent killer of men. No one plans to be distracted. No man wakes up and says, "Today, I will waste my time." But distraction doesn't knock on the door with a warning. It doesn't wear a villain's mask. It seduces you quietly. It disguises itself as entertainment, as urgency, as obligation. It whispers, "Just a minute," and steals entire afternoons. It feels like rest, but it leaves you more tired. It looks like freedom, but it chains your attention. And somewhere along the line, we stopped treating distraction as a problem and started treating it as normal. We check our phones before we check in with ourselves. We scroll through other people's lives before we look at our own. We say we're staying connected, but feel more disconnected than ever. Why? Because distraction is no longer accidental, it's engineered. Companies spend billions to hijack your focus. Notifications are designed like slot machines. Endless feeds are tailored to keep you numb. Every swipe, every ding, every buzz is a needle that feeds your addiction. And the drug isn't dopamine, it's escape. Escape from boredom. Escape from silence. Escape from facing what you've ignored for years. Your own unmet needs, your own unlived life. Distraction has become a socially accepted form of self-abandonment, and we wear it like a badge. Busy, booked, burning out, as if being overwhelmed makes us important. But here's the truth, busyness is not the same as purpose. Movement is not the same as progress. And consuming everything does not mean you're connected to anything. What if I told you that distraction is not just robbing your time, it's reshaping your identity? Every time you numb out instead of look within, you erode the sharpness of your own soul. You become less decisive, less grounded, less aware. And slowly, the man you're meant to be is buried under a pile of reactions, emails, comments, updates, likes. You're no longer the author of your day. You're the reactor, the responder, the man who is always on, but never truly present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" That's not just a productivity hack. That's a way of life. Because when you start filtering your actions through purpose instead of impulse, Your life begins to simplify. You reclaim energy. You regain clarity. You start living with direction instead of drifting on distraction. But to do that, you must first admit the truth, that you've been sedated, not by substances, but by stimulus. That distraction has become your daily ritual, the first thing you check in the morning and the last thing you reach for at night. And just like any addiction, the first step is not shame, it's awareness. It's looking at the mirror and saying, I've been running, but I want to return. Why? Because here's the hard truth. What you call distraction is often resistance in disguise. Resistance to stillness. Resistance to discomfort. Resistance to truth. It's easier to binge a show than sit with your sadness. Easier to answer every email than ask yourself why you've stopped dreaming. But every time you choose escape over engagement, you feed the part of you that is afraid to grow. And that fear is not harmless. It becomes your default. Eventually, you wake up and realize you haven't been living, you've just been managing. Managing schedules, managing stress, managing impressions, and in all that managing, you forgot how to feel, you forgot how to be, you forgot how to sit with your own thoughts and not be afraid of the silence. But silence is not the enemy. Silence is the gateway. That's where clarity lives. That's where your deeper voice, the one buried under all the noises, starts to speak again. So what's the antidote? Not productivity, not hustle, not more apps or planners or systems. The antidote is presence. It's learning to do one thing at a time, with your whole self. It's deleting what drains you not just digitally, but emotionally. It's choosing to be bored sometimes, to sit with your thoughts without needing to escape. It's making peace with the quiet, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because a man who is not easily distracted becomes dangerous in the best way. He becomes deliberate. He becomes magnetic. He doesn't chase validation, he radiates focus. And in a world starving for attention, his calm becomes a force of nature. So, my brother, the next time distraction tries to seduce you with its glitter and noise, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this feeding me or draining me? You only get so many hours, so many heartbeats. Don't spend them chasing crumbs of comfort when you were born, to feast on purpose. You don't need to do everything. You just need to return to what matters. Because when you cut through distraction, you don't just get your time back, you get your power back. And when a man reclaims his power, the world around him begins to shift. Why you forgot who you are? You didn't lose yourself all at once. It happened slowly, quietly, in ways you didn't even notice. It happened every time you said yes, when your soul whispered no. Every time you silenced your truth to keep the peace. Every time you shrank your voice just to stay liked. It didn't feel like betrayal at first. It felt like responsibility, like being the good guy, the dependable one, the one who shows up, even when he's bleeding inside. You forgot who you are, not because you were careless, but because you were too careful. You didn't want to disappoint anyone, so you disappeared instead, bit by bit. You handed yourself away to expectations, to demands, to roles that never asked if they fit your soul. You wore the armor. You played the part. You kept showing up as the version of yourself others needed, not the one you were born to be. And at some point, you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. He looked tired, not just physically, but spiritually. Like someone who'd been surviving, not living. This is the hidden cost of losing focus. It doesn't just steal your time. It erodes your identity. You stop making choices from within and start reacting to everything around you. You become a collection of tasks, a performer in a play you didn't audition for. You feel productive, but purposeless. You're busy, but not fulfilled. You've confused being needed with being known. And the scariest part, the longer you ignore the quiet call back to yourself, the louder the emptiness gets. You start craving noise just to avoid the silence. You stay busy to avoid asking hard questions. Questions like, what do I want? Who am I without the roles I play? What would it feel like to live for me again? Epictetus said. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. But you can't say who you want to be if you've forgotten who you are. You can't walk in purpose if your path has been paved by people-pleasing. At some point, the man you were born to be has to stand up inside the man you've been pretending to be. And that awakening rarely comes in a dramatic moment. It usually comes in quiet rebellion. When you start choosing peace over proving, when you stop apologizing for needing space, when you cancel plans because your soul needs solitude more than social points, when you finally say, no more of this, I want my life back. M2. The truth is, your identity is not something you earn from the world. It's something you remember. And remembering takes intention. It takes sitting in silence long enough to hear your inner voice again. It takes stepping away from the noise that's been naming you things you're not. Lazy. Lost. Not enough. You're not broken. You're just buried. And beneath the layers of performance, expectation. And noise is a man who still remembers who he was before the world told him who to be. So how do you return? You return by subtracting. You strip away what's not yours. You stop trying to fit into rooms that shrink you. You reclaim your mornings. You say no without guilt. You get clear on your values and let them shape your boundaries. You focus on depth over display. You simplify not to do less, but to become more. And slowly, the fog lifts. You feel your breath again. You remember what excites you. You reconnect with the part of you that still believes, still wants, still fights. And that's where the man you forgot rises. Not as someone new, but as someone reawakened. Because here's the sacred truth. You were never meant to be everything to everyone. You were meant to be everything to the purpose inside you. You were meant to stand firm in your spirit, to lead your own life with conviction, to make decisions from alignment, not anxiety, and to walk through this world not as a shadow of someone else's expectations, but as a fully lit flame. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be louder. You just need to return to the quiet clarity of who you've always been. Because when you do, you move differently. You speak with calm power. You attract what resonates with your truth. And you stop wasting time trying to be seen because you've already seen yourself. Let the world think what it wants. Your job now is to remember, reclaim, rebuild, not by adding more, but by honoring what was always inside. That man, he's not lost. He's just waiting for you to come home. Disappear to rebuild. The power of strategic withdrawal. Most people confuse withdrawal with weakness. They hear, walk away, and think it means you've lost, that you've given up, that you couldn't handle the pressure. but real withdrawal, the kind that's strategic, conscious, and fiercely self-protective is one of the most powerful moves a man can make, because it's not about escaping. It's about recentering. It's not about quitting. It's about realigning with what actually matters. There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise gets too loud. The meetings, the calls, the obligations, the masks. You find yourself constantly performing, constantly reacting, constantly showing up in rooms where your presence doesn't feel sacred. You tell yourself you're being productive, you're grinding, you're hustling, but in truth, you're bleeding energy into things that drain you and identities that don't belong to you. That's not strength. That's slow self-abandonment. And that's the moment you have to withdraw, not out of fear, but out of fierce love for your own sanity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But most men never make that retreat, not because they can't, but because they don't know they're allowed to. Society has programmed them to think withdrawal equals failure. That solitude is something you earn after success, not something you use to build it. So they stay on the battlefield too long. They keep swinging, keep proving, keep fighting enemies that were never their real opponents to begin with, until they collapse from an invisible war they never even needed to fight. But strategic withdrawal is different. It's not retreating from life. It's choosing your battles. It's pulling your energy back from anything that scatters your focus, clouds your peace, or hijacks your time. It's stepping out of conversations that go nowhere, relationships that cost too much, and rhythms that don't honor your truth. It's saying, I no longer negotiate my peace for validation. I no longer trade my presence for acceptance. I no longer bleed for people who wouldn't even offer a bandage. And 3, when you withdraw with purpose, something shifts. Your mind clears. Your intuition sharpens. The fog lifts, and you start to see what was never yours to carry in the first place. You begin to feel the difference between what energizes you and what empties you. And suddenly, you stop reacting. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. Because when a man is aligned with his internal compass, he doesn't need applause to know he's walking the right path. This is the essence of Stoic mastery, not emotionless detachment, but deliberate alignment. It's knowing that your highest power comes not when you're everywhere doing everything for everyone, but when you're grounded in one place, doing only what's essential. Senetsa varned. If you are everywhere, you are nowhere. A man who never learns to withdraw becomes a man who lives scattered, diluted, and reactive. He becomes available to everything and anchored to nothing. So what does strategic withdrawal actually look like? It looks like leaving that group chat you no longer resonate with. It looks like not responding to every message just because it's urgent to someone else. It looks like turning your phone off at 8 p.m. and reclaiming your evening for quiet reflection. It looks like canceling plans that were made out of obligation, not desire. It looks like walking away from someone who weaponizes guilt to keep you small. It looks like telling the truth to yourself first about what no longer serves your growth. And maybe most of all, it looks like unlearning the lie that rest is laziness, that peace is unproductive. That focus means you're falling behind. The world will try to keep you addicted to noise. It will praise you for your burnout and reward you for your exhaustion. But withdrawal is how you resist that system. It's how you take your power back. Because here's the truth, most won't tell you. A man who knows how to disappear for a while is dangerous in the best way. He's not running away. He's reloading. He's sharpening. He's preparing to move with clarity instead of confusion. While others are scrambling for attention, he's becoming magnetic through absence. While others are performing for relevance, he's building in silence. And when he returns, he doesn't need to announce himself. His energy does the talking. Strategic withdrawal isn't passive. It's preparation. It's how you go from scattered to strategic, from tired to tactical, from reactive to rooted. It's the silence that precedes the storm, the calm that creates the capacity for a more focused fire. When you step back, you don't lose momentum, you choose direction. You stop wasting motion and start moving with purpose. And yes, it might make some people uncomfortable. It might disappoint those who benefited from your overextension. It might confuse those who mistook your constant availability for love. But let it, because this next season of your life is not about proving you're enough. It's about protecting the man you're becoming. And that man, he doesn't apologize for needing space. He doesn't beg to be understood. He doesn't explain his absence. He simply returns clearer, stronger, and unapologetically aligned. So, withdraw, brother. Withdraw with your head held high. Withdraw not as an escape, but as an elevation. Let the noise fall away. Let the chaos echo without you. Let the expectations dissolve in the distance. Because your energy is sacred, your time is finite, and your life is too meaningful to be lived in fragments. Let others stay on the stage if they must. You're backstage rebuilding your script, choosing your words, setting your own rhythm. And when you return, you'll no longer be performing. You'll be commanding. That's the power of strategic withdrawal. It's not about hiding, it's about rising on your terms. The hidden power of solitude no one taught you. Solitude is not loneliness, and silence is not emptiness. But most men never learn the difference because they've been taught that being alone means being forgotten. That stillness is failure, that if no one is watching, nothing is happening. But that's a lie, a loud one. The truth is, the most powerful transformations in a man's life never happen in front of an audience. They happen in solitude, in the quiet, in the in-between. In the moments where no one is clapping and no one is checking in. If distraction is the addiction, then solitude is the antidote. It's where the noise dies and the real voice inside you begins to speak. It's where your values are redefined, not by what the world rewards, but by what your soul can actually live with. And it's not easy, because when you first sit with yourself, you meet parts of you you've spent years running from: the disappointment, the anger, the restlessness, the guilt. But the longer you stay, the more those shadows stop screaming. They soften, and you begin to hear what was buried under all the noise: truth, direction, clarity. Solitude, when mastered, doesn't make you weird, it makes you wise. It doesn't isolate you, insulates you from the nonsense, from the pressures, from the temptations to shrink yourself just to be accepted by people who wouldn't recognize the real you anyway. The man who can be alone without needing to escape is the man who can lead himself without needing applause or permission. Epictetus once said, "Only the educated are free." But this education isn't found in textbooks or classrooms. It's found in solitude, Because when you're alone, there are no distractions to blame, no one to perform for. Just you and the raw truth of who you've been and who you're becoming. It is in solitude that you learn how to listen not to the world, but to the whisper of your inner compass. And that whisper will tell you things no influencer ever could. It will show you what's real. It will remind you what matters. And if you're patient, it will lead you to peace. But solitude is not just about isolation, it's about intention. It's not disappearing just to be absent. It's retreating with purpose to realign, to rebuild, to reconnect. When you master solitude, your energy sharpens, your tolerance changes. You no longer chase people who drain you. You stop tolerating low-value conversations. You become less interested in arguments and more committed to peace, because you've learned through silence what chaos used to hide. In solitude, you begin to fall in love with simplicity, morning light, uninterrupted thoughts, the power of a breath, the discipline of a routine that no one sees but you. And suddenly, the things you once thought were boring become sacred. You start choosing peace over attention, purpose over noise. And that shift, that's where mastery begins. Most men fear being alone because they've never practiced being whole. They think solitude is a punishment. But in truth, it's where you stop being pulled in 100 directions and start moving with one intention. When you stop filling every space with people, with stimulation, with opinions, you realize that your own presence is more than enough, that you are not waiting to be completed. You're remembering that you already are. So take that walk without your phone. Sit in that coffee shop without needing conversation. Drive in silence. Wake up before the world and journal your thoughts before they get hijacked. This is how you train the mind. This is how you reconnect with the fire that's always been there, just buried under distractions. And maybe, just maybe, when you become at peace with your own company, you'll finally stop wasting time chasing the wrong ones. Because you'll realize the deepest connection you'll ever build is with yourself. How to reclaim your energy and purpose. You don't lose your power all at once. You leak it, a little here, a little there. Every time you say yes to what doesn't align, every time you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, every time you keep people in your life just because they've always been there, even when you know they no longer serve where you're going. That's how it happens. Not with a crash, but with quiet exhaustion, numb mornings, sleepless nights, moments where you catch your reflection and barely recognize the man looking back. But you don't have to live that way. You see, a man who learns to focus doesn't just protect his energy, directs it. He stops running on default. He gets intentional. Every hour becomes a seed. Every choice becomes a vote for the man he's becoming. He no longer reacts. He designs. He no longer seeks to be everything for everyone. He decides what actually deserves his attention, and he moves accordingly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" That question is a weapon against distraction, against depletion, against the addiction to being busy without progress. When you ask it enough, you start cutting away what's been cutting into you. And suddenly, clarity returns. Not all at once, but in pieces. You start waking up lighter, sharper. You stop explaining your standards and start embodying them. You stop managing relationships and start mastering your peace. This is the shift, from being pulled to being anchored. From living scattered to living sharp, you become the kind of man who doesn't chase, he chooses. Not because he's cold, but because he knows the cost of being everywhere except where he's meant to be. Because he's lived the burnout, he's carried the weight of obligations that drained more than they gave. And now, he's done bleeding time. So if you're tired, it's not a sign of failure. It's a signal it's time to redirect, to reassign your energy, to recommit to what actually moves you forward. The version of you you're trying to become, he's not found in the noise. He's built in the discipline of focus, in the boundaries you enforce, in the mornings you protect, in the people you release, in the projects you choose not to postpone anymore. This is how a man shifts, not with more effort, but with deeper clarity, not by doing more, but by doing what matters. The final shift: don't just watch, lead the change. This was never just about managing time. It was about reclaiming who you are, rewriting your rhythm, rebuilding the man behind the mask. Every hour spent chasing validation, escaping discomfort, or performing for people who don't even see you, that's time stolen from the life you were meant to build. But here's the shift: you don't need to fix your whole life overnight. You only need to take command of the next hour, 1 hour, not for distractions, not for proving anything, but for you, pure, undiluted, focused. What would happen if for just 60 minutes you silenced the noise, locked in, and moved with intention? What if, instead of waiting to be chosen, you chose yourself? Because the man who owns the next hour starts to own his story, and the man who owns his story, he becomes impossible to ignore. This channel is not about hype. It's about men like you, tired of being overlooked, tired of feeling lost in noise, tired of being everything for everyone and nothing for themselves. And when you share this space, when you pass this message forward, you're not just fueling your own transformation, you're lighting a path for another man who needs to hear this. Someone out there is one sentence away from waking up. Someone who's been hiding his ambition behind obligation, his voice behind fear. And your courage to rise might be the reason he remembers who he is. That's why this matters. That's why this isn't just a video. It's a movement. A brotherhood of men walking away from the chaos and choosing quiet command. So if this stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a mark. Share the fire. Help build the kind of world where men don't have to numb their truth just to be accepted. You were never meant to survive your days. You were meant to shape them. You were never built to be consumed by timelines and deadlines. You were made to lead with presence. And it begins now, not tomorrow, not someday. Now, in this hour, choose it, honor it, guard it, like the man you fought to become depends on it, because he does. Own the next hour, and you'll never walk the same again. Ninth screen, no more excuses. Just precision and purpose.